Welcome to your Healing Place podcast with Linda and Mindy. It is our desire to address common concerns of how abortion and faith intersect in order to validate the emotional pain and grief that abortion can bring and give hope that recovery is possible. Welcome back to your Healing Place with Linda and Mindy. And today Linda is with me and Michelle Choate is here joining us. And we're going to be talking a little bit about sharing your story with your younger children. And, really, I want to kind of preface this conversation because I know this is at the heart of a lot of women in terms of, do I share with my kids? And do I share with my spouse? Do I share with my friends? Do I share with anybody? But one of them is your children. The greatest fear that we have is losing our children in any facet, whether it's, by physical death or emotionally or some other thing. And abortion is a pretty heavy topic and hard for our children to digest more times than not. I know I've shared with my daughter when she was in her junior high years, and she's always just shown me love and grace. But today we're going to talk a little bit about sharing with your younger children. And I believe, well, you tell us, how old were your children, Michelle, when you decided to share with them?
So with my first set, so I have 5 children. I have 2 from my first marriage, 2 on earth, and I have 3 from my second marriage that I'm still in. And with my first set, I told them when the oldest was 13, 12/13. So the younger guy would have been 9 or 10.
What prompted that?
I forget what it was. It must have been something that was happening or some ministry that we were engaging with. And I was pretty guilt-ridden still at that time. So that would have been 13 years with my abortion wound, and 13 or 14 at that time. And I just couldn't handle it anymore. So I was married. I was in my second marriage, and I just had to talk to them about it and say how sorry I was that I had taken away their older sibling from them and murdered what would have been the firstborn child.
How did you prepare for that conversation?
I did not. I was a basket case. I really was. But I was also in a place where I absolutely loved Jesus. I was doing a lot of prayer and worship times, intercession. I was fasting once a week. I was spending a lot of time in, I don't know if you've heard of this, but harp and bowl style worship and prayer events. And at that time, it was once a week as well, with some very good friends where we would really seek after him and seek after giving him the praise he's worthy of. And this was just hitting me so hard. I didn't know how to go about it, but I just knew I had to talk to them and I had to tell them what happened and apologize for it. And
so it sounds like maybe your motivation was kind of getting their forgiveness.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
How did they respond?
They were kind.
Do you think they fully grasped what you were saying?
I think they were old enough to do so. And they cried a lot. They mourned their sibling. At that time, I did not know if it was a boy or a girl, but they mourned, especially the younger guy. He cried a lot more than the older guy. And we cried together. We cried and cried. And the next time they spoke on the phone with their father, who by this time we're living in Tennessee and their father's in Hawaii. Next time they spoke on the phone with him, they actually asked him
Mm.
about the abortion.
Wow.
Brave boys. And it was not a good response from their father.
Mm.
He was very mad at me for telling them. He told them, I don't know why your mom is talking to you about that. And that
Mm.
was the end of the conversation.
Wow. So you were met with a lot of grace from your boys.
So good. So kind.
Yeah. I think that's our greatest fear. And while I know the stories are out there that we share with our family or our friends or our church or whatever, and we get a bad response, I think it seems to me the majority of the responses are filled with grace and filled with compassion, you know.
Yeah.
So your second set of children, did after now you shared with your first set of children, and obviously I'm assuming your second set of children were still too young at that time, or you
They
felt like
weren't
they were
born
too
yet.
young. Oh, they weren't even born yet. Well, they were very young then.
Definitely two families.
Yeah. Okay. So, did you, when they were born and they're starting to become taller and stuff, did you have it in your mind that, oh, well, now I'm gonna have to share with them someday, or is it just something that came up later and you decided it was time to start sharing with them?
Yeah, I never thought I would have to share it with them. But when I went through Linda's group, and then some of us got plaques to put on the national memorial wall for the unborn. And then Linda invited us to go together as a group to place those plaques on the wall. I thought to myself, well, maybe I still don't have to tell these little ones yet, because now they were, so 3 years ago, May. So I think we went in fall of 21, Linda, right?
I don't remember.
I think it was in the fall. It was still pretty warm and it was still very fresh. It was either in the fall or the next spring. So 22, so that's 3 years ago. So David was 10. Jonathan was 8. And Joy was 6. Now, Joy has Down syndrome. So I don't feel like I'm not going to tell her. But I did have to finally tell the two boys, David and Jonathan. And I told them the day we were going to the
Was it?
memorial.
That's right.
Linda was driving to my house with some ladies in her car. And I was going to drive separately because I had all the kids with me. Kelly was working, so I had to take the children with me. And I just thought, the Lord is going to take care of us. The Lord's going to take care of me. Everything's going to be okay. It's going to work out. So I told them why we were heading to Chattanooga with Linda. And that was pretty hard for the 9-year-old to take, or the 10-year-old. David was, he's turning 13, so he was still almost 10. And he had a hard time, but he put on a good front for me. I mean, they were both beautiful at that memorial service at the wall. I mean, just precious, loved on me. Jonathan, especially, he's just built that way. So super sensitive to the spirit and just loving on me. David, it was harder, and it's been hard since that time. Our relationship, David and I, because he is more free with his words, he's got to vocalize and share. He's actually really upset with me for killing his older brother.
Mm.
And he's vocalized that. And in different ways and at different times, he has said that when he's upset with me. And it has stung.
Mm.
But I would just take it. And then I'll share with him later, honey, that really hurts. And and but I just want to reiterate again how sorry I am for what I did. And I know it's wrong. And I was a different person back then. And I would never do that again. I will never do it again. I am so very sorry for what I did. And he's upset that he doesn't have three big brothers to love on him instead of just two.
Mm.
But he's our I've asked for prayer from y'all over the past few months. And he's really come around and becoming softer, and our relationship and how we're talking to each other has become so beautiful. In fact, about two or three times that we've been in church, people have remarked who are sitting around us. They'll stop us during the meet and greet and say, or at the end of the service, they'll say, I just love the way that you interact with your son because David sits in service now. The way that he loves on you is so beautiful. The way you two are together is so wonderful. It's just lovely how God has transformed it. And so the openness and the honesty, yes, it was hard to go through, but God is taking care of it.
And there's such
Amen.
value. I mean, he's young. He's still young. He doesn't understand yet the experiences of life, the difficulty, the complexities, the trauma, the pain, the hurt, and all that comes with certain things in life, and I don't even think he's fully aware of his propensity to sin yet.
Mhm.
And, just the darkness that is in our own hearts and our propensity to be there without, the leaning on and the complete strength of the Lord, and how easy it is to turn our back and say no to God. All those things aren't a part of his life experience yet. And yet, I've always felt that I needed to share it with my daughter when she was young. And I can't tell you why I thought that at the time, but I did feel like I need to share with her. And I think it's only served to help her in the sense of, I know I can go to my mom with some things,
Mhm.
or I know if my friends are in situations, I know I can tell them to go to my mom if that's necessary, So I think, and then just understanding, gosh, if we get into that situation, I know where to go to my mom, not to have an abortion, hopefully, but if you were to get into that situation of an unplanned pregnancy, because we're all susceptible to those feelings of love and lust and sex and all those things,
And I think
when
it's
they're,
harder for some kids because we as parents, they think we're perfect. And sometimes maybe that's the first time they realize that mom isn't
that's
perfect.
true.
That we're a sinner too. And we think about how long it took us to process and heal.
Hmm.
We've got to be gracious with them and give them room to
Hmm.
process and have the time to heal too and work through this.
Hmm.
Um, but I do think that of course, there's no right answer. Every child's different. The
Hmm.
timing is different. It's
Hmm.
it's totally Holy Spirit, show us when and how on our knees. But I told mine fairly young because I was giving my testimony publicly, and I didn't
Hmm.
want them to hear it somewhere not from me. And mine were both extremely gracious. Um, but I think the younger the better sometimes, if with the Lord's leading, because if you wait until they're 20 or whatever, then they feel like you've been deceiving them all this time. So it's that balance of them being old enough to understand and process it, but not being so old that they feel like you've been lying to them and not telling them the truth all that time. So,
Yeah.
oh, great wisdom, Lord.
Well, that and
Yeah.
I want to add one thing to that is I've talked to some women who feel that they don't have necessarily the best relationship with their older children, and they feel like if that they should tell their older children. And when you sit down and really talk to them, it really comes out to to being more of a, if I tell them, they'll have more sympathy towards me. That's the
Mm.
wrong
Wrong
reason to
motive.
share. Yeah, yeah. The only motive to share your story with your children, depending on their age too, is again, if you're going public, like Linda said, you need to tell them first. They need to hear from you first. Or if the Lord motivates and moves you to tell them. And otherwise, you really need to take into consideration their age, their emotional state, their ability to process stressful things, their ability to even understand what you're saying to them. Like you chose not to tell Joy, it's probably wise at this point, with her mental state and what she can process and handle. And so I think it's different for everybody, and it's not a mandate unless you're going public and or unless the Lord is like, now's the time because he knows our kids better than we do.
But the
Yeah.
positive is secrets separate. Secrets put up walls.
That's true.
And to be able to take that down can really strengthen that relationship. That you
That's
don't have
right.
that in between you as the kids grow, and you've got that
That's
openness
right.
there.
That's
Mm.
right. The enemy has no more foothold for that shame when you
Right.
start sharing your story a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And all those little latches, I think of them as little hooks of shame, kind of get, released off of you. So it's like, well, there's nothing to keep in the dark, the light's in this. So what do you have on me now? Nothing, kind
Yeah.
of a thing. So
Yeah.
Right.
thank
And
you.
it was
Oh, go ahead.
just one more thing I wanted to add. My older boys came back to visit 2.5 years ago for Christmas. And one lives overseas and has a family, and the other one lives in Washington State. So, and he's in the Coast Guard now. So when they came back, we got to have a time just us sitting together and sharing. And, I just brought it up again because the refreshment in the Lord was so beautiful to me from going through the Bible study with Linda and from leading others through the Bible study. And so now that they were adults, I wanted to sit with them and apologize face to face.
Hmm.
Mm.
And they were just so beautiful once again. And they cried for the pain I had to endure
Hmm.
through that abortion and for the grief that I endured. And they also weren't crying so much for their brother as they were just for me and everything I had to endure in that marriage and through that abortion. And it was a very sweet time together. And I was so glad that I did that because it opened a door for them to tell me about their own abuse
Mm.
that they suffered at the
Hmm.
hands of their father.
Oh, wow.
And it was so important for them. They had never ever told me before that they had been abused. But so, like Linda was saying, the secrets keep us apart from each other. And that night, sitting with each other together and sharing these stories just pulled us in closer with one another.
Bonded.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
that is really sweet. Really sweet. And real quick, Linda, when you shared with your children, how old were they?
Probably it wasn't both at the same time.
Mm.
When I felt they were ready, probably third, fourth grade-ish.
Oh, young.
Yeah, yeah, fairly young. Again, because I was out speaking in the church and things. And they both just threw their little arms around my neck and said, "It's okay, Mom, we forgive you."
Oh.
Which is precious, precious. And I have left that, now they're in their 20s, and I have left that door open. If you ever have questions, come back. And they really haven't. I don't think they really want to know a lot of details. But they know it's there, and they
Hmm.
respect me for reaching out and ministering to others and are supportive in my ministry. So it's beautiful.
Yeah. And when I told my daughter, we tend to not be overly emotional. She just received it. She didn't, she just received it with acceptance. It wasn't like she got, there was no tears, there was no hugging of my neck or anything like that. But there was definitely I understand. Like, I understand what you're telling me, and not that I'm okay with it, but I'm not upset with you, you know? And
Okay.
I'm just going to accept you right where you're at. So there's all different kinds of responses
Yeah.
that, you know, our kids are going to have.
And we
And
have to give them room to deal with
mhm,
it how they have to deal with
mhm,
it.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for listening. This podcast was inspired by the many conversations had through the years with women struggling from the emotional pain associated with abortion. Thank you for allowing us into your healing journey. Subscribe on major platforms where podcasts can be heard. Learn more about virtual abortion recovery healing at www.anevenplace.com. The link is in the show notes.